This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now tonight I will be talking to the gorgeous, the talented, the very spiritual. I'm talking about Karen Lorre. Karen Lorre, back in the day, she was Karen Witter, and she was in the March 1982 edition of Playboy, and she later then, from there, became, that cutie, that sexy girl on TV, in so many different TV shows. Everything from the Dukes of Hazzard to the new Mike Hammer to Hardcastle McCormick, Hunter, Cheers, lots of great shows she was on. She was one of the many nemesises in Hercules, the legendary journeys. She was one of three of those. And she was also in some great low-budget cult movies, Dangerously Close. I've talked to like 7 people from that. The Perfect Match with Jennifer Edwards, one of my favorite guests. And of course, she was the lead in Buried Alive, which she was fantastic in that. I mean, she's really badass in that. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a great underrated horror movie from 1989. And she'll be my 4th guest from Popcorn, another cult classic. And I'm looking forward to this interview. We've been trying to make it happen for months, and it's finally going to happen. And I'm a happy guy. I also want to talk to her about, her spirituality and life coaching. She's got a couple podcasts, Chronic Pleasure and Stories We Love. And she's written a couple of books on the spirituality and healing. She's a spiritual healer, and it's going to be a great talk today. She was also on the Match Game in Hollywood Squares. I got to ask about that as well. Lots of great stuff here. So yeah, here is my interview with Karen Lorre. Hey Karen, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I feel wonderful. How are you, Tommy?
I am just fantastic. You have probably one of the most beautiful smiles in the history of the world. And as a latchkey kid from way back when, I thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really sweet of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, going back in time, I was reading that you attended UC Irvine and that you studied the biochemical origins of mental illness. Were you originally on the trajectory of being a psychologist?
No, I didn't actually study that. I studied mind-body science.
Okay.
It was called psychobiology, and it was to be a doctor to see how the mind affects our physiology. So no, I didn't ever want to be a psychologist, but I was very fascinated with the human body and how the mind affects it.
Wow. Yeah, because I'll tell you, I studied a little psychology in my early 20s, and I realized this not too long ago. That's probably why I'm so successful at interviewing, because I let a lot of it sink in, Yeah. So, you started modeling and doing commercials to support yourself in college. Did you always want to be in front of the camera?
No, I wanted to be a doctor, and I just kept getting, one friend called me up and said, listen, I was supposed to do this job in Mexico for 5 weeks. I can't do it. Do you want to do it? And I said, what is it? She said, it's 5 commercials. And I didn't know, but I figured, that'll pay for my school for the whole year. And so I said, okay. Of course, it was a quarter system, which I think was 9 weeks. So I missed a good portion of the quarter. But I had a great experience just of being in a country. I had maybe gone to, Tijuana and stuff, or Ensenada a little bit, or Baja. Right. But I had never been. We were in 5 different locations for the movie or for the commercials. And so it was really fun. And it was interesting because I couldn't speak Spanish at the time. But after I got back, all of a sudden I had so much more capacity. Nobody there spoke English on the crew or anything like that. So my capacity to speak Spanish it must have been going in. I must have been listening quite a bit without understanding what was going on. But at some point when I came home, I turned on the radio and it was on a Spanish station. And I was like, oh, I understand this. So that was cool.
How's your Spanish these days?
Muy bueno. I mean, I'm not fluent. I'm better in French right now. I've been studying French for like almost a year, I guess. But with Spanish, I can talk to almost anybody about most things. I might just have to ask, how do you say this or how do you say that? But I like languages. I like people. And most people that I talk to, you know, if I don't know them, it's a shorter conversation. And so I can talk in that kind of Spanish for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I only know the words I'm not supposed to say in Spanish. That's about it.
Yeah, I never learned those words for some reason. Like all these people know all those words, and I just never had an interest in those. What I speak in every language that I have practiced is hi, how are you? Thank you, I love you. That's it. Like those are, I know those at least in many, many languages. Like, you know, lots of things, Korean and Russian and Serbian and, you know, and just like lots of different kinds of languages. So I think those are the essential things for me, but, you know, maybe you like the other stuff. It's just not my style.
Oh, no, I mean, I know those words as well, you know, hola, amigo, compadre, stuff like that, you know, but like, yeah, I know all the bad ones too. So did you do any like school plays and community theater growing up at least?
I did a couple, I think I did one or two plays when I was younger, but that wasn't really so interesting to me. The part of the reason that I started moving towards acting is because I kept getting those commercials, and then I got, you know, small roles on certain TV shows. And at some point I thought, oh, I better learn what I'm doing, you know, because I had never really taken any acting study or anything like that. Yeah. And what ended up happening was during that class that I took, it was a Meisner class at a place called Playhouse West. Yeah. And it was my first day of going there, and when I was on the stage, I had one of those, you know, the golden light shining down on you, where you just feel like, oh my God, this is the best feeling in the world. And so it still took me a good 3 months because I really did like science. I really like science. But one day, about 3 months after I had had that experience, and I was still going back now to that class, there was a voice in my head that said, do you want a life where somebody else is telling you what to do? Or do you want a life of adventure? And I thought, oh, adventure. And then I immediately knew that acting was the road of adventure for me. And then literally the next day, I told my friend I'm going to be an actor. And he said, oh, you got to get an agent. I said, what does an agent do? You know, I'm like 20, I guess, 21. I said, what does an agent do? And he said, oh, an agent gets you acting jobs. I said, cool. How do you get an agent? He goes, you got to get a manager. I go, what does a manager do? And he said, they get you an agent. And we were at a restaurant, and he was still inside the restaurant when I was walking outside, and I was waiting for him. And this woman came up to me, and she said, hi, are you an actress? And literally, you know, I just had made the decision the night before. So I was a little like, yeah, you know, trying to figure it out. And she gave me her card, and she said, hey, give me a call tomorrow. I think I could... I would like to work with you. I'd like to at least talk to you about it. And she said, my name's Dolores, and I'm a manager. And I was like, oh my God, because that's what I needed in order to get an agent. And so I called her, and she became my manager. And I just, you know, it was just a totally interesting thing. And she got me an agent, and she got me acting jobs. And it was just really kind of effortless, like a big synchronicity, kind of helping me understand that I made the right choice.
Right. Amongst your acting teachers, you studied with Milton Casellas. I've talked to many of his students. Who was in your class?
Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah.
Kimberly Cates. Gosh, you know, there's like 40 people in there, 50 people in there, tons of people in there.
Lisa Pescia?
Yeah, I think she was in there. I can't remember everybody. Gosh, that was in the 90s. And, you know, you didn't know everybody because you only knew the people. Al Sapienza was in there. You only knew the people that you did scenes with. But, yeah. He was He was a Scientologist.
Yeah.
And he told a bunch of us, you should go to the Scientology Center and check it out.
Right.
So we all went, and they gave everybody a little spiritual test.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was done writing it, the woman said to me, "You do not need Scientology. So you don't have to stay. You can do whatever you want." And I said, "Yeah, I don't think I do need it."
Yeah.
And she said, "Great." And I said, "Thank you so much." I said, "Will you make sure they don't call me, and like try to get me to sign up?" And she said, "Of course." And they never called again, and I didn't become a Scientologist.
Wow. That is so awesome because, yeah, I mean, they'll take just about anybody, but they probably saw how honest you are or something that you're like, yeah, no, they're not going to fit in with us.
Something. I don't know what it was. But she said, I was enlightened. That's what she said back then. I certainly was not enlightened, but that's what she said. At the time, I was not.
Yeah, because a lot of the ones I've talked to, they were in it for a little bit and then left, or they didn't go into it at all, and they ended up getting into some friction with Milton. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Look at what Leah Remini is doing, blowing the whistle on it. I'm so happy about that. Was Rick Podell around?
I think he was.
Uh-huh.
Because I know who he is.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure if I know him from that or from some other thing. But, I mean, literally, there were so many people, and I don't think I did any kind of scene with him or anything. So, like the people I mentioned, I worked with Giovanni Ribisi on the X-Files, not in the class, but we were both in the class.
Right.
Also, the girl who played Marilyn Monroe, she was so pretty. What was her name? It was this was like in the 90s. She played Marilyn Monroe. Oh gosh.
On the X-Files?
No, on a TV, on a movie.
Huh. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, I can't remember her name. She was so beautiful and so sweet, and I thought she did a great job. Mm-hmm. And she was in our class. I want to say Michelle.
I'll look that up, but I see you also studied voiceover with Bob Korff. I know his wife Clara. She's been on the podcast.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've studied with Bob Korff. I've studied with Roger Love, and yeah, so it's super fun.
What did you endorse in commercials?
I did over 60 commercials.
Yeah.
So most of it was for like products. I didn't do like fashion because I'm like 5'6". At the time, I was like 5'6" and a little bit. Now I'm just a little bit under 5'6". But a Clairol commercial, car commercials, beer commercials, some clothing commercial, but not fashion. Mm-hmm. I can't even remember all the commercials. Tons. Oh, Venus, Dan and Yogurt. I was Venus on the half shell. Tons of commercials. And then the ones in Mexico were for Tecate beer. So I was La Rubia que todos quieren, which means the blonde that everyone loves. And it's a light beer, I guess. So the beer is the blonde loves, but they called me that too. So that was fun. I've just done a ton of. There's so many commercials. A lot of car commercials, and a lot of I've done commercials. I did Irish Spring. I did AT&T. Gosh, so many things. I did Breyers, one of those ice creams, where I was doing a one-arm handstand. I mean, they had me supporting up there for a long time.
Yeah.
On a part of a chair, eating an ice cream cone upside down. It was hilarious. So I've done a bunch of commercials. I can't even remember all of them. There's so many, but they're always fun. Commercials to me are like a 3-day party or a 2-day party, depending on how long the commercial is, and everybody's in a good mood, and it ends early, and you make friends, and I just always loved it.
Yeah, I heard the money used to be really, really good, and they would like give you, a free box or case of whatever you were endorsing, depending on who the company was. Yeah, I heard they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I did one commercial. This was one of my favorites. It was Lee Jeans,
Hmm.
and I got there. They said come at 7 o'clock for hair and makeup. So I was there at 7 o'clock. And first of all, it's in Griffith Park, which is a beautiful place of nature.
Hmm.
But literally, I got into the Lee Jeans outfit, and then I worked 20 minutes, and they said, "Okay, you're wrapped." So I was going home by 8. I was leaving the park by 8:30 in the morning,
Hmm.
and then I made 20 grand. I thought that was so nice. It was so easy. It's the shortest amount of time with that kind of a return.
Hmm. Was it Poppy Montgomery?
Uh, in terms of what?
She was Marilyn Monroe in a 2001 CBS miniseries.
I don't think so. I think it was Michelle. I want to say Michelle Williams.
Michelle Williams.
I'm going to check, but
I didn't even know she played Marilyn. Wow.
I'm not sure if she did. I might be wrong. Marilyn Monroe played, and it was in the mid 90s.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to see.
Yeah.
Michelle Williams.
Huh.
It was Michelle Williams, yeah. But also, Ana de Armas also did it. But Michelle Williams is the one that I knew.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's very talented.
Yeah, really talented and beautiful, and she did a great job.
So when you're doing these commercials and modeling and all that stuff, is that how Playboy comes into the picture?
No. Playboy came into the picture before that.
Oh, okay.
Playboy, I did, how did it happen? I'm trying to remember. So before I decided to become, while I was still studying, I was in college. No, yeah, I was just in my first, I think either quarter or second quarter. And I lived next door to 4 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was over there a lot because there was one that I was dating. And we just had a really nice connection. We'd all study together, and they had their friends, and their friends would come over, and they had Playboy magazines, but their friends would always look at me and say, "You could do that." And I remember saying, "No, I couldn't do that. No." And then I heard it so many times that one day, and this is really dating me, but I went to the payphone and put in my quarter and dialed 411, and I said hi, and the lady said hello. I said, "I want the number for Playboy." And she goes, do you want the Playboy modeling agency, or do you want Playboy Studio West? I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, if you want to become a playmate, you want Playboy Studio West." And I said, "Okay." And, and like she knew, this is a 411 operator, knew all about it. So I went over there. I didn't even know how to drive. I was just 18. I mean, I knew how to drive a little bit, but I didn't have a car. So I asked my friend Forrest if he would take me. And so we drove. We had to be there at 8 o'clock, and it was up in LA, and I was at Irvine. So he drove me up there. And then they called me in. I didn't have any makeup on. I was wearing my mother's dress. I didn't have any sense of being fashionable or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was just a 5-minute Polaroid thing, and then after it was done, I came out, and the lady said, "We'll contact you in 6 weeks." And I said, "Okay." And then me and Forrest talked about, "Oh God, you're never going to do that. They're so beautiful. You couldn't do that." And I was like, "Yeah, I know I can. It's just ridiculous." So then he drove me home, and as I was walking up the stairs to my apartment, the phone was ringing in the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
This is before cell phones, and I answered the phone, and it was them. It was Playboy, and they said, "Hef likes your pictures. You're going to be Playmate March 1982," and this was in 1980. And I said, "Oh my God, that's crazy." And they said, "Yeah, we'll call you shortly, and we'll set everything up, and da da da." And so I did a lot of the modeling in LA, and then I sailed to Hawaii with my boyfriend at the time, the one who lived next door to me. He was a particle physicist and studied neutrinos, and he was just a brilliant, but also he could play guitar, and he was just like classical guitar and flamenco guitar. And he was just lovely. So we sailed from Huntington Beach to Maui, And so then after that, I did some more photo shoots for Playboy in Hawaii. Yeah.
As you become close with Hef?
No. In fact, I stayed away from him pretty much. There was one day, like he had an assistant named Joni, and she would always say, "Do you want to go upstairs to see Hef?" And I'd say, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
Do you want to go upstairs to see Hef? No, thank you. And then one day they gave us little bungalows to stay in when we were there. Like I would come back to film for them, and they always insisted that I stay there, even though my mom and dad were like, 30 minutes away drive. So I was there in the bungalow, and one night the door unlocks. It was locked. I was in bed, and the door unlocks, and Hef walks in his silk pajamas, and he sits on the side of my bed, and he says, he's like playing with my hair on my forehead, and I'm like panicking, I don't know what to do. And he says, do you know how much Playmate of the Year makes? I said, no. And he goes, they make $300,000. I said, oh, cool. And then he goes, but you know how much a regular Playmate makes? And I said, not really. And he goes, $10,000. I said, okay. He said, we really want you to be Playmate of the Year. I said, oh, that's nice. And then he said, but we wouldn't know it unless you came upstairs to be with me. And I said, oh, no, thank you. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yes, I'm sure. And he said, are you sure? And he's like, his eyes are just piercing mine. And I said, yes, I'm sure. And so he kisses me on my forehead, and he gets up and he walks to the door, and he said, you're making a big mistake. And then he walks out and locks the door. And I was having a panic attack. I was so freaked out. And, but I always have felt good about that, that I can't sell out. I don't have a way in my heart to take money for something that I don't believe in.
Right.
Well, I have never done that.
Well, I give you kudos for that. And I got to tell you, I have that issue that you were in.
Oh, really?
I collect old Playboys, yes.
Oh, I thought you meant you have that issue where some man comes into your room and tries to offer you money for sex.
Oh, no, and I think if it
you mean you have the issue of the Playboy magazine.
Oh, no. If that happened, I probably would take it, but I'm talking about Playboys.
Got it.
Yeah. So the first TV acting credit on your IMDb is Matt Houston. How was that experience?
Gosh. I think it was good. I think I had a good experience at everything I did, but I don't really remember that. That was like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to share one other thing, though, because a little bit after that, I was already acting, so this is maybe 2 years after Playboy. And I hadn't worked that much, so I didn't have a lot of money. I was trying to make my rent, basically. And my agent called up and he said, Karen, guess what? I said, what? He goes, you got a job and you don't even have to audition. I said, oh my God, that's great. What is it for? And he said, you're going to be on billboards all over the country. I said, oh, that's fantastic. What's it for? And then finally he said, it's for Virginia Slims. And I said, oh, I can't do it. And he was so mad, because they get 10%. So he was so mad. He would have gotten $30,000. And I said, he said, why won't you do it? I said, I can't think of anything good that smoking can do for someone. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
and so it was the same price as what Hef was talking about, the $300,000, but I just could not bring myself to do it. And then the great thing was that a couple years after that, I got, or not even a couple months after that, I got One Life to Live. Mm-hmm. So I felt like the universe had, given me an option to go one path, but I made so much more on One Life to Live, and that was really fun, and that worked with my integrity.
Awesome. Yeah, in that episode of Matt Houston, you had Apollonia before Purple Rain was in there, and Lisa Welch, another Playboy girl who was in Revenge of the Nerds not long after that as well. Yeah, and then you did a Dukes of Hazzard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dukes of Hazzard was fun. I enjoyed that. I was an AD on Dukes of Hazzard. And I also, yeah, I think that might have been my very first acting job was Dukes of Hazzard, but I'm not sure. Or maybe I filmed it first and then it came out after. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been fun because that was the episode where they go to Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was the AD and it was really fun.
Yeah, it's amazing how they made the back lot of Warner Brothers in Burbank look like Atlanta, but since they were in Hollywood in this episode, they didn't have to do that much to fake it. Obviously, you know, I got
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I got to visit Warner Brothers Studios in 2016. I got my own little tour as I was going to go see Conan O'Brien's show, and I was like, wow, so much history here, you know. And now I heard they changed a lot of it.
Yeah, that's cool you got to go. That's wonderful.
Yes. Then you did 3 episodes of the new Mike Hammer. How was working with Stacy Keach?
Oh, he was wonderful. He was so kind and just really a sweet, sweet man, always supportive. I really enjoyed him. I did a whole bunch of stuff with him. I think I did 3 of those. You said 3, right? I
Yeah.
did at least 3. Yeah.
Yeah, one episode had Bubba Smith, Danny Goldman, Janine Turner, before anybody knew who she was, Mary Margaret Hume, and Tim Rossovich. What a great guest cast, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because the one you said before, the Dukes of Hazzard, Steve Buscemi was in that, and
Yeah.
somebody put out a thing on X, which used to be Twitter. They put out a picture because my birthday and Steve Buscemi's birthday and Taylor Swift's birthday were all on the same day, so they put a bunch of Hollywood people on this picture, and it was just funny. And I was like, oh yeah, I did Dukes of Hazzard with that guy.
Yeah. My dad is 9 months older than all of you. He's March 4th, 1957.
Oh no, I was born in the 60s.
Oh, that's right. You were born in 61. Buscemi was born in 57.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Then you did I Married a Centerfold, and Terry Copley, I've had her on here. What was that experience like?
I think it was fun. I don't really remember that one too much.
Another early one that's a little foggy.
Yeah, I mean, I did so many jobs at that time, and if I didn't have, most of the time when I had a job, if I had a really good experience with the people, I remembered it. But I'm not saying that I didn't have a good experience. I just think it wasn't that great of an acting experience that I can remember. So I don't really remember it.
Yeah. Oh, the Rick Hodell, he was actually in it. He played a stand-up comedian on stage.
Oh, okay.
Because he was a stand-up, yeah. And Anson Williams, of course, who played Potsy on Happy Days. I've met him, really sweet guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you did a Hardcastle McCormick with my friend Licia Naff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is so great.
Yeah, she's doing a bunch of cool things. I think she brings water and socks.
Yes.
If I remember, to people that are homeless in downtown LA.
Food and water and socks and all the necessities. Yes, they're called drive-by do-gooders.
Right. I love her. Yeah, she actually became a friend of mine, but I haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah,
She became a friend of mine like 15 years ago.
Yeah, she's brutally honest and very funny and just a great person. She sent me. I donated some money to Drive-By Do-Gooders a couple of years ago, and she sent me an 8x10 of her in Total Recall when she has 3 tits, and she signed it. Got milk.
Yeah, she's funny. She's really funny and witty and got a big heart.
She does. Do you remember anything about Brian Keith?
Yeah, he was always really sweet. I really loved him.
Yeah.
And I really liked him.
He was a real man's man, and he was old Hollywood. He had been there. I mean, he worked with everybody in the business.
Cool.
Trapper John, M.D. Any good memories of that?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun on that show, and it's so funny because there was a writer. Mm-hmm. After I auditioned, there was a writer who was there, and he was on the second floor, and I was already down on the ground, walking away. And he said, how'd your audition go, or something like that? And I said, it went great. And I said, what's your name? And he said his name, and I said, are you Irish? And he said, yes, I am. And I said, are you an alcoholic? And he started laughing, but he was. And so he and I became friends for years. We're still friends, actually. That was so funny on that show because he was, he was a writer on that show. Uh-huh. And he did a bunch of other shows. He did that show where the guy fixes everything, MacGyver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was funny. He was funny, and he didn't know he was an alcoholic till later, and I don't mean to be prejudiced against people who are Irish. It's just that the ones I have known that are Irish, that they have that issue.
Yeah, and I saw this episode on YouTube the other night. You and Caroline Parton are a couple of hotties who are at the pool that Timothy Busfield is at. He's like laying on that floaty, and he falls into the water, and you two laugh at him.
Yeah, it wasn't like a great, scene, but it was fun. And Timothy was really sweet also.
I've heard he's a really nice guy. And Gregory Harrison's a nice guy. About 20 years ago, long before I ever thought about interviewing people, I sent him an email of questions, and he replied me back. He was really nice.
I love that.
Yeah, very rare, I'll tell you. You played another hottie in Hunter, and I found this episode on YouTube, too. You and this other girl, you're having a threesome with this fat guy, and you say your name to him, and he says, you're some kind of buttercup.
Oh, my God, I must have blocked that one. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
I know I was in that show, but I don't remember anything about that show. That's so funny.
Yeah, and then this crazy punk rock guy comes in and starts, has guns blazing and everything.
God. That was Fred Dreyer. He was a sweet man, too, though. I liked him.
Oh,
He was a football player before that.
Oh, yeah, he still holds the record for the most safeties in one game, 2.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Can't believe no one's broken that record yet.
That's incredible. Yeah.
You're my 7th guest from Dangerously Close. I've talked to Tom Matthews, Bradford Bancroft, McGill Nunez, Dee Dee Pfeiffer, Drew Ann Perry, and Tom Fridley, who is John Travolta's nephew. Mm-hmm. And, oh my God, so we just lost Albert Pune. Is that how you pronounce his last name, the director?
Oh my God, did he die?
He died, I think this summer, I think he had dementia or something in the last, few years of his life. I tried to get him on here, and his wife never got back to me.
Aw, yeah. Aw.
Yeah, do you remember anything from that set?
The thing I remember actually was about Albert. He took me to lunch, and he said, you are so untalented. You should give up acting. You're a terrible actress. And, he kind of devastated me at the time.
Wow.
And then like a couple weeks later, I got a 4.5-year job on a soap opera. So it didn't bother me after that. Mm-hmm. But at the time I thought, wow, that's so weird. But it's still, I cared about him, but I didn't think he was very nice at that point. But I was just young, and that's how I interpreted it. Uh-huh. But I am sorry that he passed, and I can't believe he would have dementia. He's not even very old. I don't think he was.
Yeah, I think he was about 70 or something.
Yeah, that's young for that.
Yeah.
To me, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I like a lot of his movies from that time and stuff. Yeah, it's sad I never got to talk with him, but I did interview a woman a couple of years ago who's been making a documentary about him ever since, so hopefully we'll see it next year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was still alive, of course, when she started.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember working with Sandra Locke on Rat Boy?
I do. I do remember that. That was kind of interesting. Sandra Locke was married to Clint Eastwood at the time, right. And so she was directing this, and it was a very strange movie. Mm-hmm. But it was still a lot of fun, and she was fun, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I just remember having a good time on that show.
Yeah, I've talked to some of the other party guests that were in that scene, just by coincidence. George McGrath, Jonathan Schmock, who was there with his partner, Jim Vallely, and Kathleen Wilhoit, and then, of course, Bill Maher and John Lovitz was there, too.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize that was Bill Maher and John Lovitz. That's so funny. Yeah, or Jonathan Schmock. I remember those people in my life, but I didn't remember that they were on that show. That's interesting.
And Sharon from the Musketeers, she was Rat Boy, and I've had her on here a couple of times. She's a great lady.
Yes, she was great. She was great in that for that kind of a part. It was funny. She was funny.
Yeah, she was a little scary too because she was convincingly a Rat Boy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad story. It was kind of a sad movie, and Louis Anderson was in it. Of course, we just lost him not too long ago.
Didn't we lose Louis Anderson like in the 90s?
He's had a couple of heart attacks in the 90s, but he died about a year ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he made it as long as he did, because yeah, he did have like 3 heart attacks or something.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, he was really sweet. I liked him.
Yeah, he was really funny. So I've talked to Jennifer Edwards, and we talked about The Perfect Match. It's such an underrated romantic comedy. Tell me about working on that one.
I really liked that movie. It was a movie where I played a matchmaker.
Yeah.
And I was in the wrong office, and the guy who was coming to do the match thought that the things that were shown in the office I was in were about me. So he said he wanted to go horseback riding, and what he really wanted was like to sit at home, eat pizza, and watch TV, right?
Yeah.
But he was saying all the things that were the pictures in the office I was in. And so he says, well, I like doing this, and I like doing all these things that he thought were me.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards I said, oh, man, I said, it's really nice. You're really sweet. I would have liked to have, date you, but all I want to do is, stay home, eat pizza, watch basketball, and he was just like freaked out that he had done this stupid thing. It was a really cute romantic comedy. I liked it.
Yeah, she told me that her and Mark McClure are actually really good skiers, and it was really hard to play bad skiers when they were doing the skiing part. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great in it. I really liked him.
He's a very underrated actor, I think. Yeah, I sent Jennifer a Christmas card a couple weeks ago, and she loved it. So. Yeah, she's great. When she comes on here, I'm just, the biggest Blake Edwards fan. She loves how I nerd out on her father's movies. She's just like, she loves my energy, and she's always eating at the palm of my hand.
That's so sweet. Yeah, I've known Jennifer a little bit. I didn't know her well, but I knew her a little bit. Yeah,
she's a great lady. I remember when you were on Cheers. How fun was that?
Oh, that was so fun. I really enjoyed it. I was playing a stripper for Fraser Crane's bachelor party.
Yeah.
And in the audition, I'd never had stripped, but I just thought, oh, I'm just going to have fun. I don't care. And everybody had said, oh, watch out. This casting director he's really hard to please. Uh-huh. But I didn't care. I just went and just had fun doing it. And so then I got the job. And then what's funny is, so that job was really fun, and it was a funny little scene. But then now I'm friends with him with Kelsey. So that's been fun, and with his wife. His wife is just beautiful and sweet, and we've become girlfriends. So it's really sweet.
Oh yeah, and the punchline was, "She's one of my patients."
I know. It was Dr. Crane. Karen, the character was named Karen. Karen, because I hope you're not doing this. I hope you're doing this for the money, because this certainly won't square things between you and your father. Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, he was good.
First and 10. I used to watch that show when my parents were asleep.
Well, that's funny. That's what was with O.J. Simpson.
Yep.
I basically didn't really like going on that set, and I said no to a food, but I did a couple of the episodes.
Yeah.
And that I just stayed away from him. There was something about him that didn't make me feel good at the time.
Yeah.
So I just stayed away from him as much as I could, and still, pay my rent.
Well, did you go near John Kassir?
Was he on that show?
Yeah.
I don't know who.
He was. He's best known as the voice of the Crypt Keeper on Tales from the Crypt, but he's kind of a balding guy, and he's really skinny, kind of quirky looking.
I don't know him. I don't have a good sense of who he is.
Yeah, and Donald Gibb, of course, who everybody remembers from Revenge of the Nerds.
I don't know him either.
He was the big guy with the beard. You know, he had kind of a mohawk in those days.
On First and 10 or Revenge of the Nerds?
First and 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, the person I knew the most was OJ. I mean, he always was kind of coming towards me, and I was always kind of, trying to get near somebody else, get away. But I did talk to OJ the most. I don't think I remember hardly anybody else except for him.
And Delta was gone already.
Okay.
Delta Burke, I think she was on Designing Women by that point.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Because she was on the first couple seasons of First and 10. I'm sure you hear this a lot from horror fans, but I love Buried Alive.
That's so funny. You know what I loved about Buried Alive was we filmed it in South Africa. I literally went on the audition on Tuesday and flew to South Africa on Friday.
Uh-huh.
And that was a really extraordinary experience being there. I really, I made just all these amazing friends from the people that lived there. And I went on a Saturday. One of the people that I knew, he lived in Soweto, which at the time when we filmed it, it was right before apartheid had broken. Mm-hmm. And so there was apartheid, and Soweto was where a lot of the people, it was a township where a lot of the people that were black lived. And I said, I'd love to go to Soweto. Can I go? And he said, yeah, but you've got to hide in my car in order to go. So he picked me up on a Saturday, and when we were driving into Soweto, there was a guy on a big tower with an AK-47, and he said, get under the dashboard, mm-hmm. Hide there. And he put his jacket over me, and we went through. And then he said, okay, you can get up. And then he said, when we get into the town, I'm going to have you get down again. And I said, why? And he said, because if they see me with a white person, they could necklace us. I said, what is necklacing? He said, it's where you put gasoline in a tire and light it on fire and put it around somebody's neck.
Wow.
I think you put it around somebody's neck first and then light it on fire. And I was like, oh. So then he took me to this school, and he had invited a whole bunch of his friends, and they were speaking Zulu. I only knew a few things in Zulu, but it was so beautiful. It was an afternoon where a bunch of them spoke, and when they spoke, I could just feel their hearts. And I didn't know what they were saying, but there was so much love there. And they all came and hugged me, and, they were just so sweet and appreciative. And so that meant a lot to me to be able to go there. And I also visited the man's house. But what was so crazy is as we were driving to the house, I saw all these people being carried on like hassocks with sheets over them. Wow. And two people on each end of the hassocks, carrying them somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I said, what is with all these dead people? And he said, oh, the police come in here and they say, tell us somebody that, did something illegal. And if you don't, we'll kill you. So the people in this village were telling the police about people in order to save their lives. It might not have been true. They were just trying to keep alive themselves. And so it was that was kind of harrowing to see, but I felt like it was an experience that I wouldn't have understood if I hadn't been there.
Wow.
I wouldn't have the compassion and the understanding and the the desire for everybody to have that freedom that they were wanting and the kindness that they were wanting.
Wow. That's a lot to take in there. Yeah, but I gotta say, you are so good in this movie. You display so much vulnerability, and you look genuinely terrified when those ants come at you.
Oh, they were scary. They were actually biting me, so yeah, I was scared. They were wicked. And there was a thing actually in that movie at the very end. I was in a room, mm-hmm. and they made a fake explosion, but it still had smoke and a little bit of fire, not real fire, but it had smoke and a little bit of fire. But what happened is then I was supposed to run down this hall, and I was running towards the camera, and the camera's rolling backwards. Mm-hmm. But because I was running, I had pulled the fire from the room down the hall with my speed.
Right.
And so the fire came and it engulfed me, and I dropped out of the shot, and I got burned. The nylons melted onto my legs, and my hair got singed, and I got burned on other parts of my hands and stuff like that. And then they cut the thing because I had just fallen out, and I was really injured. And they said, "Do you want to do it again?" And I said, "No," because it was really it was. And then I found out later that the stunt coordinator for that movie already had killed 2 or 3 other people with bad stunt stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was glad I didn't do it again.
Crazy.
I still have scars on my legs though, from the nylons being melting onto the skin. It was really, really intense.
And this was John Carradine's last movie, and of course Robert Vaughn, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Magnificent Seven, and Donald Pleasance. I mean, it must have been intimidating being on a set with those guys.
Donald Pleasance was so supportive and so sweet. He would come talk to me all the time and just encourage me. I loved him. He was just a sweetheart. Robert Vaughn didn't have a sense of humor, so he would sometimes be so serious with no humor in the line, and I was very unprofessional. I'd start laughing, and then he'd get mad.
Oh, wow.
So, but he was still a good guy. It's just that he just played it very, very, serious. And I think there's always room for comedy, even in a drama.
Yeah, he's always deadpan when I see him in interviews, so I'm not surprised about that.
But Donald Pleasant was a real sweetheart. And John Carradine was also really sweet. I think he passed away right after that film, though.
Yes, he did. I think he passed Thanksgiving weekend of '88. So, mm-hmm. And it must have been a lot of laughs with Ginger Lynn on set.
Yeah, she was great. I didn't know that she was doing what she did at that time, which was she was an X-rated actress, I guess.
Yeah.
But I liked her as a person, and we had fun. And the other thing that was interesting, there were 2 people in the cast that were Black Americans, Nia Long and Valerie. Oh, I'm spacing on her name.
Kelly Jo Minter.
And Valerie was the other one.
I'll look it up. I forgot.
Yeah, Cartwright. I can't remember. But Valerie, she was amazing, and Nia Long was amazing. But what was fascinating is we would try to go out together, all of us, because we were all on the same cast and we were all friends. And some restaurants wouldn't let them in. So none of us would go into those restaurants. Because we were in South Africa, right? Oh. And so they still had this apartheid, and they were like, you cannot bring these Black people. I said, they're American. And they said, well, you can't bring them in our restaurant. And then I said, okay, we'll go to another restaurant. And so we had to go to restaurants where they would allow them to go in. And it was so crazy because they're totally free in America, at least, comparatively. But in South Africa, they were just judged. And the other thing that was so fascinating is that they both expressed how important it was that if you were Black and you were American, to go to Africa and to find your tribes, because they each could see different people that resembled them and others that did not at all. And it was so interesting to kind of watch how they were getting a deeper sense of their own ancestry. Mm-hmm. And they just, both of them had mentioned how important it was to go to Africa if you're Black and really look for which group do you look like? Where do you look like it? And that's probably where your ancestors are from. And I just remember how powerful that was for both of them.
Crazy. Yeah, there was, there was Janine Dennison, there was Ashley Hayden, Rosalind Farrell, Dee Dee Ebers. I don't see any Kellys here.
No, and also Billy Butler was there.
Yeah.
William, but Billy and I became friends from that, and we would paint together, and we're still friends. We would paint together tiles after that, he'd come over and we'd just like not talk for 4 hours and just paint.
Yeah.
And then afterwards we'd say, oh, wow, that's really good. And, talk about our painting. And that was it. Like we would get so high from painting.
He's a funny guy. I haven't had him on the show, but I know people who know him, and just there's always a funny Billy Butler story somewhere.
Oh yeah, he's funny and sweet, and yeah.
I also love Popcorn.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was with two people that I really love. One is Tom Villard, and he was the lead, and I love Tom, and we had dinner one of the first nights, and he said, do you want to go to Negril on the weekend? And I said, sure. Mm-hmm. And then he also invited Derek Rydell. And Derek and I had been in an acting class together, and now we were both in this movie. So me and Derek and Tom all went to Negril, and I'm still connected with Derek, and I'm still connected with Tom's boyfriend, who's one of my dear friends. So that was really sweet. We had a really sweet connection. I love that. And that was filmed in Jamaica, and it was super fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with Jill Sholin and Dee Wallace, and they've told me that it wasn't their favorite experience. There was, first Alan Ormsby's directing, and then Mark Herrera's taken over, and there was a lot of politics, I guess, behind the scenes, but, they've had to come to terms with it because it has such a huge fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really pay attention to the politics. I was enjoying both Tom and Derek, and I was enjoying my role, and I was enjoying Jamaica, and I was enjoying all the people I was meeting from Jamaica, and the music, and the fact that like goats would just walk through somebody's house, or chickens or whatever, when I went to go visit people that live there. So I didn't really notice the politics in that thing, but I'm sure that they did have it. I heard talk about it. It just wasn't something that I was, really in on.
And Jill's an absolute sweetheart, of course.
Yeah, I really liked her.
She could be so intense on screen, and then once it's done, she's a completely different person. She's just so warm and giving and caring,
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
And of course, Malcolm Denier, I've talked to. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I really liked him too.
Yeah, and Tony Roberts from my favorite romantic comedy, Annie Hall, was in it.
Yes, he was great too. Yeah, I really liked him. Yeah. There was a lot of people on that.
This movie was meta before the term meta ever existed. It was like way ahead of its time.
Oh, that's funny.
Then you mentioned before One Life to Live. Like, people tell me that soap operas are the hardest acting jobs because you have to memorize so much dialogue, and if you fuck it up, you're fired.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved being on that show. Part of the thing I loved is, like, when you do a movie, people for however long you're there on that movie set. So it could be 2 weeks or it could be 4 months, but that's like the extent of the relationship. And this was the first, consistent thing. I saw the same people every day, and I'm still friends with several of the people from that show. And I really loved the family that was created with the actors. And I loved my character. I played Tina, and that I had never watched a soap opera before, but I really enjoyed playing that character. She was flighty and ditzy and slutty and serious and spiritual, and so she was just really fun to play. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, well, you played characters like that already, going back to those early TV credits, like on Hunter and stuff, and Trapper John, those kind of, those flighty, slutty girls. Yeah, somebody at one point, like in the 90s, so I did One Life to Live from 90 to 94, I think, and 4 and plus a couple months, and somebody at one point said to me, what did you play on that show? And I said, a slut, That's basically what I did. It was really funny, but yeah, it was fun. I really loved it. I loved the cameramen. I loved the sound guys. I loved the directors. Oh, I loved the producers. I loved the actors. I just, it was so sweet to be able to get to know people for a really long time, for years, and work with them consistently over years. And there's something about when you're working with someone consistently, that you can get a closeness that's just beautiful.
Absolutely. And then you were like probably the first girl to play Nemesis on Hercules.
Yeah, I liked Hercules. That was fun. That was in New Zealand, which I love traveling. That's one of my favorite things about acting. Yeah. I love acting, but I love traveling. And it was fun to play Nemesis.
Yeah, did they just, did they ask you to come back and you weren't available, or?
Yeah, I think I was doing another show. I think I was doing Flipper in Australia when they asked me to come back for the Nemesis role. So they ended up giving it to somebody else, and then once she had done it a couple times, she stayed with it, but I couldn't do it. And I was bummed because I really enjoyed it, and I loved New Zealand, and I enjoyed, working on the set. Everybody on the set was really great, and the directors and everybody were great, and the producers were great. I liked it.
How was the Dream On experience?
Super fun. Brian Ben, is that his name?
Yep, Brian Ben.
He is hilarious. Oh my God, he was hilarious. It was so much fun to act with him. I loved it. It was really fun. Really fun. And the audition, this was so funny about the audition. I did the role, and then I was getting ready to leave, and I was saying thank you, and then I dropped my purse, and everything fell on the floor right at where their feet was. There was maybe 8 people in the room. And so I'm on my knees, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm going between their legs to get it under the couch. It was so funny. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I thought, oh my God, I will never get this job. And then the next thing, I got it. And they said it was so charming the way I was so
was John Landis on set?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite comedy directors next to Blake Edwards. Like, those two, I think, are the masters of directing comedy movies.
I love that.
And you were a frequent celebrity contestant on Match Game and Hollywood Squares. I went on YouTube. I saw a clip of you on there in 1990. It was Charles Nelson Riley, Joanne Worley, Bruce Baum. And that was back when game shows were bawdy and fun. Now they're just boring, It
was fun. We did, they just flew us out, I think, to do, I think we did 5 shows a day. So we did a whole bunch of shows each day. And I think we were out there for either 3 days or a week or something like that. And it was other people from One Life to Live were also on it. And it was really fun. And I got to win money for somebody. I got to give the right answer. So she won whatever she won. And she was so excited. And so that I was so excited because I wanted her to have it. It was just sweet. I liked it. And the audiences were so great. Yeah.
You say, do you want to know where Saudi Arabia is? It's between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, yeah. That was my really dumb joke.
Yeah.
It's like a bad joke.
you say it so deadpan, you do your beautiful smile to punctuate it.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
Of course. So, when was the moment you decided that you were going to get out of acting and get into spiritual healing and life coach?
Well, I got married, and I really loved this man, and I was having a great time. But I had, without me knowing it, undiagnosed narcolepsy, and I'd had a lot of trauma growing up. So our marriage got very, it got off track. We were married for 10 years, but it still got really off track. So when we were getting divorced, and part of it was because I was falling asleep. I fell asleep on camera at an audition and on camera on a film. And so what happened was we got divorced, and I was so desperate, and I thought, I've got to heal before I can do acting again. And so I ended up devoting time to healing. I had the narcolepsy. I was up and down bipolar. I had dissociation where I'd get unpresent. I had suicidal ideation, chronic pain. My adrenals were depleted. My thyroid was off.
Wow.
And everything was just going so wrong. And my friends had left me, and my husband had left me, and I didn't have any money, and I was just freaking out. But I ended up trying to find a solution, and I did find a solution, and my whole life changed. I had a spiritual awakening, and now I don't get upset anymore. I don't hate anybody. I don't resent anybody. I'm free. I'm free, and now I can help other people. So that's kind of when I decided, I didn't know if I could do acting with the spiritual connection I had. I wanted to make that spiritual connection more important than anything else. But now I have found a way that I can act and keep that spiritual connection. And so I'm in the process of some things occurring, I believe. So that's really fun. But it took me some time. And then when I healed my body from all these things, I ended up writing my first book, which is called Chronic Pleasure, and it helps people let go of pain and fatigue. And then the publisher of that book said, why don't you write a memoir? Because she had seen me on things like One Life to Live and stuff like that. So she knew my story a little bit. So I wrote a memoir. And then the third book I wrote is Chronic Pleasure in Relationships, and it's for women in order to, have better relationships with men. And so I wrote those 3 books, and I just... Before that, I had started coaching people only because one day I was so amazed. I realized that it had been several months, and in that time, all the pain had left my body. My mind was clear. I was solid in my, balanced in my emotions. I wanted to live. I wasn't suicidal anymore. Like, everything changed so much. So I literally just wrote a Facebook post saying, this is what it was like, and this is what it's like now. I if you want to talk to me about it, let me know. And I got a client that night, like that very day, and she became my client for many times. She would just reach out anytime she had a problem, and we would work on it together. And so I was just working with people, and then she told more people, and then they told more people, and then they told more people. And so I just was having, lots and lots of coaching jobs. And I didn't know I was going to be a coach. It's just that it happened. Just like I didn't know, if I should be an actor or not. It just happened. I made a decision about that, but I made the decision after I started working with her, and I watched that first girl, her allergies went away, her relationship with her kids got better, her energy increased, she was able to let go of some traumas, and I thought, wow, this is really powerful. It worked for me, and now it's working for these people, so that's when I became that. But I still love acting, and I'm excited that there are some things that seem like they're happening in the future.
Oh, awesome. Like you've done some auditions on Zoom or something?
Not auditions, but somebody reached out to me and said, I love your energy. We're doing 16 movies, and some of them have roles that you would be good in. Do you want to have a Zoom? So we had a Zoom conversation, and he sent me the deck of, of 6 or 7 pages on each project, so I could get a sense of it. And so there's those movies that I could act in. But then after he did the first Zoom with me, he said, I think you'd be a great producer. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, because mostly we need a producer that's going to keep peace on the set, that's going to help everybody have a good time. And he said, you have such, wonderful energy. And we are also looking for female producers because we're trying to do more things for women. So, if that's something you're interested in, you can shadow different producers, and then you can do it when you feel ready, and we'll give you a whole team to work with. And so he's been really thoughtful and really generous. And so that's been interesting. It hasn't happened yet, but I do know that they are just in the process of getting the funding, and they just got the place where they're going to shoot it, like the first ones, and they're getting the crew together. And then that person who I had the Zooms with, he lives on the East Coast, so he's going to come out to LA, I think, in January.
Oh, that's fantastic. Fingers and toes crossed.
I think it'll be really fun. And I like the idea. My ex-husband was a producer. Yep. And so it makes sense to me that, I was in that milieu, and now I'll get my own experience to do that.
That is fantastic. Are you going to keep writing? Yeah,
I'm in the process of writing my 4th book, which is about, being able to, I don't have a title for it yet, but something like chronic pleasure as you age, how to look and feel younger or something like that. So.
And you have a couple of podcasts. One's called Chronic Pleasure, and one's called Stories We Love. And do you drop new episodes often of those?
I haven't done the Chronic Pleasure one for a little while. Stories We Love, I have a potential one coming up. I kind of do it whenever somebody that really interests me shows up. So I just do that. It's not like a regular, it's not a consistent thing, but people really love it. Like the stories I've done, I've interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton. I've interviewed people who do regenerative farming. I've interviewed people who are really cool teachers that teach kids how to be joyful or teach kids meditation and mindfulness. I've interviewed people that make prisons a place of like a monastery. They make a prison into a spiritual experience so these people can heal. You know, there's so many things. I've done things with Dean Radin. He studies at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He studies psychic phenomena. I've had a lot of psychic phenomena. And so I interviewed him, and I have so much fun. So everybody that I'm a fan of, that has something that benefits the world, I see if I can interview them. And some people say yes, and some people say no. There's one guy I really wanted to interview, and he said no. But he's somebody. I'll just share about him in case you want to look him up. He's called the Gangster Gardener, and he lives in South Central LA, I think. And he has taught his community around him how to grow their own food. And they were planting food in the part of the yard that's on the far side of the sidewalk from the house towards the street. And that is city property. And the city said, you can't plant food there. And he took them to court and said, yes, I can. You don't have any stores here. We need to have food. We're going to plant here. And he won the lawsuit. So I just think he's great. I wish he would interview with me, but that's okay. I'll find somebody else. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, just because they say no now doesn't mean they won't in the future. I mean, I've gotten to interview people who said no to me years ago, and then later they changed their mind. So you never know.
I agree. I totally agree.
So real quick, we got to play my secret silly game. This is a series of silly slumber party questions. No win or lose. It's just pure fun. And how the game works, Karen, is I ask you the question, you answer it. Then you ask me that exact same question and I answer it. And feel free to comment on the answers because they might be funny.
Okay.
Karen, are you ticklish?
No. Are you ticklish?
Oh, yes. If you tickled me without warning, I might hit you in the groin.
Oh, God.
Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
Innie. What about yours?
It is also an innie. What color are your toenails painted?
They are not painted.
Okay.
What color are yours?
I just painted them red, green, and white for Christmas.
Nice.
Yes. They look really shiny. What would you say is your best personality trait?
I'm super calm, relaxed, and loving. That's 3, but those I think are it. And I'm energized.
I agree.
Okay, and what about yours? What's your best personality trait?
Being that I'm a Gemini, I have empathy and I have no filter.
Nice.
Yes. If you could have anything named after you, what would it be?
I don't know. I don't think that's something that I'm really... I don't think that means much to me, if that makes sense. But what would you be? What would you want to be named? Have something named after for you?
A vibrator.
Love it. Okay.
I'd call it the Tommy Chatsy. And remember, it's just a fantasy, no pun intended. And then my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
Nope.
What, really?
Nope. Nothing makes me gag.
You have a high tolerance nose.
No, I just nothing bothers me.
Okay.
I mean, there's things I don't like to smell, but it doesn't make me gag. What about you?
It's either farts or feet.
Okay.
I'm half Italian on my mom's side, and we're very sensitive to smell.
Yeah, I'm super sensitive to smell, but for some reason, I think I mostly smell things that I like. I don't really pay that much attention when it's something I don't like. There's not that much around me that smells bad.
Yeah.
Wherever I am, I can't even think of anybody or anything that smells bad that I've been around.
Yeah.
So
it's subjective.
yeah, and I think, I'm in this place of unconditional love, so nothing really bothers me, if that makes sense.
I totally get it, yes. Karen, thank you so much for finally coming on, and I hope you had a blast tonight.
I did. Thank you so much, Tommy, and thank you everybody who's been listening. This was super fun, and appreciate you all.
My pleasure. You have a great night, and be safe out there, and keep on spreading love to the world, and have a happy holiday season.
You're so sweet. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Take good care, love. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Karen Lorre, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh, what a great lady, I mean, I really thought she was that persona she had on screen back in the day, but there's so much more to her, so much layers of love and unconditional understanding and so many different things about her. And I'm so glad we could have that talk today. I really am. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.